Hey everyone, welcome to Mountain Woman Radio. I'm your host, Tammy Trayer, and today is episode number 213. For those of you that enjoy following on our website, you can go to trayerwilderness.com/podcast-213, and you'll find the show notes there, as well as links to the other resources. For those of you that are on YouTube, welcome. I'm so glad to have you guys joining in, and I've been getting some tremendous comments on this series, and I'm really grateful for that. You know, we've talked about there's hope in these situations, and we've talked about how to deal with things that we can't control, and God's timing versus our timing. And I thought today that I would touch on the financial side of things, because finances is an area where people get really scared really fast. And as a result of our 4-year journey with our medical debt, this wasn't really an unusual time for us in this regard either. We could have filed bankruptcy over the last 4 years. That service and that opportunity is there for all of us. But we really felt God was leading us not to go down that road, that God was telling us to trust Him. So we avoided filing bankruptcy, and we continued to trudge on. And something that was very prevalent during this time was that one of the things we are called to do is to tithe. And we are supposed to tithe 10% of whatever we make to God first. And we were very obedient with that, and also obedient in trusting God with our circumstances. And, you know, it's not easy, but the more you are obedient to God's direction, the easier it becomes, for sure. But we tithe our last pennies so often, and it was times when we needed that money for other things. But miraculously, every time we obeyed and tithed, the money we needed was always there. And, you know, God made it very clear to us that that was an important aspect of the dynamics of our relationship with Him. And we are very, very faithful with that. We have through this 4-year walk. And I feel that is something that's extremely important, that even when we're in unfortunate circumstances, we still need to do our part in tithing. And that's part of us being obedient to God, and His word is true that He will take care of us, and He does. The other thing is, you know, there is nothing against filing bankruptcy if you have or you need to. That's what the service is there for. But for us, we really felt God prompting us not to go that route. And we were obedient with that. And as I've shared with you, God has delivered us from our circumstances in a tremendous way. And I just feel so awed and extremely, extremely blessed as a result of our faith and our trust and our obedience in Him. So I want to encourage you guys during this time. You know, one thing that was different for us over these last 4 years is that there was the opportunity to partake in bankruptcy. But as far as other things being available to us, there wasn't anything else. Where right now, we are all walking out this COVID-19, the lockdown, and the pandemic together. And one thing you guys have that we didn't was the fact that there is financial aid available. They're providing access to finances for most people in some way or another. So you do have that available to you. So you will be cared for, and that's by our government, but I truly believe that God will take care of all of us. And when we hit these financial crises, there's things that we need to put in place and that we should keep in place moving forward. And that is that we need to be thankful for what we have and not in that constant mode of need, and that constant mode of having to purchase something new just because it's available or because someone else purchased it. You know, we live very frugally. We have from the very beginning. We live even more frugally now after walking out these last 4 years. Our needs are so, so little. You know, there's very, very little that we need in this life, and other than food and fuel, really. You know, we might need a pair of jeans or a shirt or something here and there. But beyond that, our needs are so small, and we don't fall into that marketing scheme. And when we go into the stores, we're very focused. We go in there with a list, we get what's on the list, we get out. The marketing in our country is just insane, and it's so easy to go into a store like Walmart, which I despise for multiple levels, but their marketing, the stuff is just in your face as soon as you get in the door. And it's the way our society has been taught. And we are a throwaway society. So, you know, so many people can go into their closet right now and probably pull out clothing with tags on it because you've purchased it on a whim and never actually even wore the clothing. And those are the kind of things that I'm trying to point out right now, is that we need to learn to be thankful with what we have. And one thing that you guys need to understand is part of that draw to have more is because we're seeking the wrong thing so often. You know, you're seeking joy and happiness in your purchases, where my joy and happiness comes from places like this and spending time with God. And I don't have that deep desire to have to purchase things anymore. When we downsized and we got rid of all the clutter and all the excess, that was a really huge turning point for us, because we realized how much that stuff was bogging us down, and how once we departed with so much that we didn't need, our lives became so much simpler and so much nicer, so much less distracted, I guess is the way to describe it. So learning to be happy with what you have, learning to be frugal, learning to live with less, whether that's, in this case, you know, you went without dining out, so you're now eating in more. And some of you may have enjoyed that. Some of you may be really disappointed with that. But we don't eat out but maybe once or twice a year. We enjoy our meals at home. We enjoy cooking our meals. We enjoy knowing where our food came from. We also spend a lot of time foraging from the wild, doing things for ourselves instead of hiring people in to do them. And also gardening and producing as much of our food as we can. We hunt every season to provide our meat for the year. So we make the physical effort to put our energies out to be able to help ourselves and to have better food available to us. And that in and of itself is a huge savings. A hunting license compared to purchasing a year's worth of meat is no comparison. And there's just so many different ways that we can be more frugal and to live with less. When you start cutting, you know, your dining out and you're going all over the place, and your fuel bill and your excess purchases, you'll end up with a lot more money that you could either put towards your food or put into savings so that you're prepared more when things like this happen. But financial is one of those things that can really cause a lot of weights and stresses. We know that very well. But again, it was in a category and in a place where there was so much that we could not control. So learning to look past those instances and being able to focus on what was important and to do our best with the finances we had, first tithing and then paying what we could. Because guys, we were in really dire straits. Like I told you, there were times where we couldn't afford toilet paper when it was available. We haven't left the homestead for weeks on end because we conserve on our fuel so that when we do need it, we have it, because we didn't have money to put into the tank. Thankfully, our food, because of the way we live, was never an option. We've always had abundance in our food, and that has been just such a saving grace, both 4 years ago, when we went 6.5 months without an income, we fed ourselves and another family. And then throughout these 4 years, when things were financially tough, our food carried us through. So there's a lot of different ways that we can become more frugal, learning to do things for ourselves, learning to make things, learning to utilize our, I always call them superpowers, but if you're able to make something, like I make pine needle baskets, or I do leather work, all kinds of different things. The mountain man does his metal work and that. So, you can supplement your income with extras by the skills of your own two hands, and learning how to do that, learning how to utilize other handy abilities that you have to help others. The mountain man has a sawmill. He's good in construction. So being able to do small jobs, we have a construction business. So doing small jobs for people to supplement your income, if that's something that you are able to do. There's so many different things we can do, but when you learn to live frugally and you learn to live with less and you learn to be happy with what you have, the funding that you do come in ends up being able to, like I said, be saved or utilized in the areas that you truly need it, versus in the stuff that you're just going to stockpile and probably gift to the Goodwill at some other point. It's just the way society is today. But I'm sure that as you were in your lockdown, you might have learned that you were able to live with less, and you found simple pleasures in doing things that you haven't been able to do for a while. So instead of being overwhelmed and totally alarmed by the financial situation of our country, realize that everybody's in the same boat right now, and that there is going to be aid, and is aid becoming available, and that people are going to have to show grace on mortgage payments and car payments and all of the sorts, because we were put in this place, and there wasn't anything we could do about it. So I want to just encourage you to not be in a panic over your financial place. Just work at it one day at a time. Trust more than anything that God will carry you through this, and that He will provide for your needs, and be obedient. Tithe when you are able, and make that your priority, because a lot of times what we do is we put tithing at the end of our budget sheet. If we still have money left over, you need to move that on your budget sheet to the top. When you put that in the top place and you budget first, you will have enough, trust me, to pay what is necessary. And God will care for you and provide. So those are my thoughts on the financial aspect of things. Is, again, trusting in God, but also learning how to provide for yourselves with growing a garden, even if it's something small or in a flower bed or on your back porch. But being able to supplement and to live with less so that you have more. And I know that sounds funny, but we lived with much less and we were never without. So I just want to encourage you to hang on and reevaluate your financial position and where you spend your money during this time, and how you can conserve and be a bit more frugal. Power bill's a great one. I know I didn't mention that, but power bill, water bill, it's amazing when we have people come to visit. They just don't realize how much they utilize of water, because we're very frugal with that. And I think I've mentioned it in my Facebook Live or my YouTube Live, but we designed our house so that every light is on its own switch, so that we can be extremely frugal. And even though we don't have a power bill, we don't want to have a fuel bill to run our generator to keep our batteries charged, because we just are excessive in everything that we're doing. We are so frugal. And living in that wall tent for 8.5 months is what started all that, when we were using a Dietz lantern and headlamps to exist. So you live that simply, and it just kind of becomes ingrained in you. And I'm very, very thankful, because our new future build will be stepping us back in time even further, and we will be utilizing less and less resources, probably going a winter without solar power even. We're not sure how that's going to go yet, but it's exciting nevertheless to see how things are all coming into play. Everything's falling into place, and it's pretty awesome stuff. So guys, don't fret, don't panic. You will get through this, and this is not the end of the world, I promise you. Financial stresses are hard though, and I can certainly appreciate that. But make an attempt to figure out where you're spending your money on a normal basis, and where you can maybe cut corners and save with the power, the water, excessive buying, all of those things, and even selling some of the stuff you have. You know, I've seen a lot more sales going up on the Facebook marketplace during this time. So selling the things you don't need and simplifying your life is a huge aspect of that too. So thanks for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you're gaining from this. I encourage you to seek God and put Him first, and to tithe. And if you are watching this on YouTube, give it a thumbs up and certainly leave a comment. And if you are listening to this on iTunes, please give us a review. It helps us to reach more people just like you. And guys, I thank you so much. I will see you on the next one. Take care and God bless.